I always played only on stage or in front of the camera, remaining myself the rest of the time. I lived the role, but I did not plan life, never confusing one with the other. These words belong to Audrey Hepburn, a woman who was a style icon, a trendsetter, and considered by many to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Despite this global adoration, she remained perpetually skeptical about her own appearance. Her legendary roles were bright and unforgettable, yet she loved being a wife and mother above all else. The incomparable Audrey Hepburn quickly conquered Hollywood, but fame and international recognition did not come easily. She bore the weight of a dark family past, roles she was terrified to play, and complex relationships with the industry's giants. Audrey Kathleen Rustin, later known as Hepburn Rustin, was born on May 4, 1929, in the municipality of Ixelles, Belgium. Her family affectionately called her Andriantje. Her mother, Baroness Ella van Heemstra, was a Dutch noblewoman, the daughter of a baron who served as the mayor of Arnhem and governor of Dutch Guyana. Ella already had 2 sons from a previous marriage when she met Audrey's father, Joseph Victor Anthony Rustin. Joseph was a British subject with Austrian ancestry who, despite being born with the surname Rustin, later hyphenated it to the more aristocratic-sounding Hepburn Rustin. He did this perhaps at Ella's insistence, laboring under the mistaken belief that he was descended from James Hepburn, the 3rd husband of Mary, Queen of Scots. The couple married in the Dutch East Indies in 1926 before moving to Europe, where Joseph worked for a loan company in London and later opened a branch in Brussels. By 1932, the family had settled in the municipality of Linkebeek, on the outskirts of Brussels. Audrey's early childhood was sheltered and privileged. Her worldview broadened by traveling between Belgium, the Netherlands, and England. However, a shadow loomed over the family in the mid-1930s. Her parents became supporters of fascism, recruiting for and collecting donations for Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists. Her mother even met Adolf Hitler and wrote favorable articles about him. In a heartbreaking incident on Audrey's 6th birthday, her parents traveled to Munich to have lunch with Hitler, completely forgetting to congratulate their daughter on her special day. Shortly after this, Joseph abandoned the family, moving to London to become more deeply involved in fascist activities, never visiting his daughter abroad again. Hepburn later admitted that her father's abandonment was the most traumatic event of her life. From that moment on, she was afraid to blame her mother for anything, while Ella, in turn, tried to raise her daughter to be resilient against any of life's hardships. Audrey would say, "My mother taught me everything, to draw and read, to love books, and to be diligent, to restrain emotions and think first about others and then about myself. She taught me to be kind, even when you want to howl like a wolf, taught me to work and not to give up." For Ella, the hardest task was protecting her daughter from the crushing disappointment of her father's nature. She did not want Audrey to view herself as the daughter of a fascist or a worthless person, so she often preferred to appear cruel or unfair in order to prevent the child from seeking close communication with him. Before the outbreak of the Second World War, Ella removed Audrey from boarding school, brought her sons Alex and Ian home, and moved the family to the grandfather's estate near Arnhem in Holland. Audrey loved Arnhem. She recalled her mother's stories about the grand family home, the beauty of the city, and the promise that she would study dance at the Arnhem Conservatory. The house was indeed beautiful, and her relatives were kind, especially her beloved Uncle William. During the months she lived with him, he instilled in her a lifelong hatred not just of war, but of violence in general.
However, the peace was short-lived. In May, it became clear that the war had reached Holland. Audrey's childhood effectively ended at 11 years old amidst the roar of tanks rolling down the quiet streets of Arnhem. The Hepburn family was evicted from their home and forced into a servants' annex. As the war began, the young girl learned to survive in brutal conditions, realizing there were far greater injustices in the world than a father leaving home. In the early months of the occupation, before starvation set in, she continued her dance lessons, but secrecy was paramount. She had to hide her English documents and heritage. She became Etta instead of Audrey and spoke only Dutch. To avoid accidentally revealing her English background, she tried to remain silent and express herself through dance. As the resistance to fascism grew, so did the repression. Executions became frequent, food rations dwindled, and bans were imposed on daily life. Children, often unaware of the full danger, became liaisons for the resistance movement, and Audrey was no exception. She ran messages through Arnhem and once, risking her life, helped hide a downed English pilot in the forest, who was later concealed in their home. The war inflicted irreparable damage on the family. Her beloved Uncle William was shot for the death of German soldiers. One brother was sent to a concentration camp, and another was taken to work in Germany. Ironically, her father was also interned in an English camp for supporting the enemy. Then came the hunger. Enraged by railway strikes, the occupying forces forbade food delivery to civilians. Audrey and her mother were forced to walk to nearby villages to barter possessions for food. She later recalled, "I remember my legs swelling from malnutrition and anemia. You can't dance on such logs, yet it was our only source of income." When the townspeople were evacuated from Arnhem, they moved to her grandfather's house in Velp. Though they had a roof over their heads, it was freezing and devoid of food. Desperate, Audrey returned to the deserted Arnhem to scavenge for breadcrumbs in an abandoned bakery, finding only 2 dried rolls and some apples. She narrowly avoided a German patrol, hiding in a rat-infested basement where she was bitten by a rodent. She eventually returned to Velp with jaundice, but the meager food she found kept them alive until the British began airdropping supplies, finally saving the Hepburns from starvation. After the war, with their home in Arnhem destroyed, the family moved to Amsterdam. Paul Rubens, a wealthy Dutchman and head of the Unilever Association, became their patron, helping them escape poverty and effectively replacing Audrey's father. Once recovered from her illnesses, Audrey began studying dance with Sonia Gaskell, a renowned ballet teacher who praised the girl's tenacity even if she couldn't promise a career as a prima ballerina. When living in Amsterdam became too difficult, Gaskell recommended Audrey to Madame Rambert's famous dance school in London. The family moved to London, where they lived in an apartment owned by Rubens. Madame Rambert accepted Audrey but was blunt. She was too tall, too thin, and too late in starting her training to become a professional ballerina. Though Audrey practiced tirelessly, she eventually had to bid farewell to her dream of ballet stardom. Needing to earn a living, Audrey began working as a model, translating documents and taking chorus girl roles in musicals. It was in the chorus line that she met Kay Kendall, a vibrant and energetic woman who would later inspire Audrey's portrayal of Holly Golightly. Audrey took any role available, provided it didn't compromise her dignity. Raised by a strict mother and the harsh realities of war, she knew exactly how a well-bred lady should behave. She was eventually spotted by a casting director and signed as a freelance actress, appearing in minor roles in films like Laughter in Paradise and The Lavender Hill Mob. Her first significant, albeit minor role, came in 1952's Secret People, where she played a ballerina and performed her own dance scenes. It was around this time she met her first love, the young and wealthy James Hansen. Initially, the disparity in their financial status made marriage seem impossible, but James was charming and persistent. He proposed, and while Audrey was eager to marry, her mother advised caution. Engaged, but with no wedding date set, Audrey traveled to Monte Carlo to film Monte Carlo Baby. It was there that fate intervened in the form of the French writer Colette. Charmed by Audrey, Colette insisted she play the lead in the Broadway adaptation of her novel, Gigi. Despite her fear of the stage and lack of theater experience, Audrey traveled to New York. She was nervous about leaving her fiancé, but James's business interests in Canada made New York a convenient base. At her audition for Gigi, producer Gilbert Miller was initially shocked by her casual attire, but won over by her performance. Simultaneously, Hollywood came calling with an offer for the lead role in Roman Holiday. Audrey sailed to America with 2 life-changing offers in hand, terrified she might wake up back in the war-torn Netherlands. Audrey's performance in Gigi on Broadway was a triumph, earning her a Theatre World Award. Immediately following this success, she flew to Rome to film Roman Holiday. In the film, she played Princess Anne, a royal who escapes her duties to explore the city with an American journalist, played by Gregory Peck. Director William Wyler was captivated by her natural charm during her screen test, specifically when she didn't know the camera was still rolling. Fashion designer Edith Head was equally enchanted by her 50-centimeter waist, promising to make her a trendsetter. Filming in Rome was complicated by the presence of her fiancé, James Hansen, who was impatient for the wedding. Additionally, the press began to circulate rumors of a romance between Audrey and Gregory Peck, though in reality they were just close friends. Peck became a mentor to her, helping her relax on set. The relationship with Hansen, however, deteriorated due to the grueling filming schedule. The wedding was postponed multiple times until finally the couple broke up. Roman Holiday became a massive hit, earning Audrey an Academy Award and a Golden Globe, solidifying her status as a star. Her next project was Sabrina, a role she actively sought. While the film cemented her fashion partnership with Hubert de Givenchy, the production was fraught with tension. Director Billy Wilder and the writers were constantly rewriting the script, forcing actors to learn lines at the last minute. Her co-star, Humphrey Bogart, was unhappy and often took his frustrations out on Audrey, teasing her mercilessly. Conversely, she fell into a passionate affair with her other co-star, William Holden. They nearly married, but Holden's inability to have children, a deal-breaker for Audrey who dreamed of a large family, ended the relationship.
At a party celebrating Roman Holiday, Gregory Peck introduced Audrey to Mel Ferrer. It was love at first sight. They married in Switzerland in 1954. Mel, ambitious and controlling, began to manage Audrey's career, often dictating her choices. They starred together in the play Ondine and the film War and Peace. The latter was a sprawling, chaotic production that failed to impress critics or the box office, and their on-screen chemistry was criticized as lacking passion. Despite professional bumps, Audrey's star continued to rise with Funny Face, where she danced alongside Fred Astaire. Though the age gap made Astaire grumpy, the film was a visual delight. She then took a more serious turn in The Nun's Story, a role that required deep spiritual preparation and filming in the Congo. The film was a massive success, proving her range as an actress. During this time, she also reconnected with her estranged father in Dublin, a meeting that brought her closure but little emotional warmth. Tragedy struck during the filming of the Western The Unforgiven, when a fall from a horse caused a miscarriage. Devastated, Audrey retreated into herself, but was saved by another pregnancy. She gave birth to her first son, Sean, finding immense joy in motherhood. However, her contract with Paramount obliged her to return to work, leading to her most iconic role, Holly Golightly, in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Despite the author preferring Marilyn Monroe, Audrey made the character her own, creating a cinematic legend with her performance and her rendition of Moon River. Her career continued with hits like Charade and the massive musical My Fair Lady. The latter was controversial. Despite a $1 million fee, Audrey's singing voice was dubbed by Marni Nixon, and she was snubbed for an Oscar nomination, while Julie Andrews won for Mary Poppins. Privately, her marriage to Mel Ferrer was crumbling. After a final film together,
wait until dark, and another miscarriage, they divorced. Seeking a quiet life, Audrey settled in Switzerland. On a trip to Italy, she reconnected with Andrea Dotti, a psychiatrist she had met years earlier. They married, and at age 40, she gave birth to her second son, Luca. For a time, she was happy being a housewife and mother in Rome. However, Dotti's desire for a trophy wife and the threat of terrorism in Italy drove Audrey back to Switzerland. She briefly returned to the screen for Robin and Marion with Sean Connery, but her marriage to Dotti ended due to his infidelity. In 1980, Audrey found true peace with Robert Wolders, a Dutch actor and widower. They never married, but considered themselves soulmates. "Next to Rob, I felt calm," she said. With her children grown, she dedicated her final years to UNICEF, appointed as a Goodwill ambassador. She traveled to the most destitute corners of the world, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Somalia, using her fame to bring attention to starving children, a plight she knew all too well from her own childhood. Her last screen appearance was as an angel in Steven Spielberg's Always. In 1993, shortly after returning from a mission in Somalia, Audrey Hepburn passed away from cancer at her home in Switzerland. Her final words were, "They are waiting for me, angels, to work on earth." Audrey Hepburn was more than a movie star. She was a woman who transformed her own suffering into compassion, a style icon who preferred simple comforts, and a mother who considered her children her greatest legacy. Her work with UNICEF saved countless lives, ensuring that the beauty of her soul outshone even the beauty of her face.